Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 531 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. And happy holidays! I am your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our sixth book just came out. It's called I'm So Beautiful, It's Ridiculous, Unleashing and Promoting Strength, Self-Worth, and Real Sisterhood. So go and pick up that book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together. Fun fact, the fraternity experience does not end at graduation. When I first moved to Tennessee and I knew absolutely nobody, I reached out to a brother of Phi Delta Theta who lived in town for lunch. So thank you so much, Rusty Richardson, for accepting my lunch invitation. And we hit it off so well that he invited me to join his Rotary Club in Lebanon, Tennessee. He served as Rotary Club president. And when it came time for him to end his presidency at the end of the year, guess who was the one who picked up the gavel and became the next president of the Lebanon Breakfast Rotary, or I should say Noon Rotary Club? It's all because of the interfraternal bonds of brotherhood that I ended up just joining the club, becoming president, and just maintaining friends in that town from that point forward. And to this day, I'm still so close with so many of their members. And speaking of Phi Delta Theta, let's meet our next guest. Dr. Bill Martinov has over 35 years of higher education experience, inclusive of senior administrative leadership, teaching, coaching, fundraising, and student recruitment that has embraced both diversity and campus-wide collaboration with the primary goal of enhancing personalized student success. This includes experience in advancement, athletics, admissions, and student affairs. Most recently, Dr. Martinov served at Long Island University as Director of Athletics and then served as Chief of the University Alumni Engagement and Athletics Advancement. Welcome to the show, Dr. Martinov.
Hey, good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me. This is we're going to have great time today, and I appreciate you having me on. And I hope by the end of this that we can share some great stuff with our students.
I know that we are going to share some great information with our students. So it's an honor to have you on the show, and happy holidays, of course, to you and your family. You know, I love to talk about people's backgrounds because I think that that college experience is such a formative 4 years. And then obviously you go on to graduate degrees and doctorates and all the good stuff. But it really all started at DePauw University for your undergraduate experience. So I'm wondering, why did you decide on DePauw University?
Well, that's a great question, and really, I have a lot to be thankful for DePauw. As a high school three-sport athlete, was getting recruited, and one of the people that was just a huge impact in my life, and up until his passing, was Coach Nick Morozes, football coach at DePauw. He recruited me, and I can remember him coming to the school, and just he just had so much energy and positivity. But he was the best recruiter for the university, not just football, but for the entire university. And what he talked about was really about what you were going to do after football. And so he was a very positive force in my decision to go there. I wanted to continue to play football, but more importantly, I wanted to get a great education. So DePauw is a great liberal arts school in Indiana that has great things to offer, and probably more particularly that helped me was experiential learning opportunities. And I saw that with the winter terms and the Philadelphia urban semesters, things I'll talk about a little bit later. But the career experiences tied in with the academics was huge. And to continue to play football for a great coaching staff and represent a great university, it was a hands down no-brainer.
Yeah, I love that you ended up getting in touch with a student recruiter, and I'm sure you emulated a lot of the things that he was doing later on in your career. So I think it comes full circle. You
Mhm.
joined Phi Delta Theta fraternity. I'm wondering what made you want to join them as a group?
Well, another great question. At the time, I think DePauw was 95% Greek. And I think it's a little different now, but at the time it was, we had 12 fraternities on campus and you went through Rush. And for me, it was all about where I felt most comfortable with. I think my parents told me that, when you go through, there's a lot of things to consider, but where you feel most comfortable when you get to meet the people, and that's where it's at, right? And so Phi Delta was just a great group of guys. It was a great mix of students, student athletes, musicians. We had international students. We had people studying all different subjects. And to learn that I'd be a part of that kind of eclectic group was really a big draw. And there was a good share of athletes, don't get me wrong, but the mixture was very unique, I think, compared to the other fraternities at the time. So it was the right fit. It just felt great. And those friendships I've had ever since. So I think that tells you a lot about my decision. It was the Phi Delta was the right decision for me to make.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you had that experience and that's a part of your undergraduate experience from then until now with those lifetime friends because I think it's just really important for people to talk about, to understand how that makes that college experience. You know, you talked about experiential learning. You get a ton of it at Phi Delta. And so I think that that's wonderful that you were able to join them. And, the other really interesting thing about you is you were the assistant strength and conditioning coach at Notre Dame for over 10 years. That must have been an experience unto itself, but you actually knew Rudy. I mean, what was Rudy
Sure,
like?
sure, sure. So I'll tell you first and foremost, I was very fortunate to be at the University of Notre Dame, Mike. It was one of those things where didn't necessarily see it coming so quick. I was 23. I was full time. We won a national championship. I got to work with some great coaches like Lou Holtz and Digger Phelps and the baseball coaches Pat Murphy and Paul Maneri. It was just a great experience and to be there at that time for me for a developmental standpoint of a career was awesome. Exceptional commitment to excellence. But I got to know Rudy, interesting enough, through he used to work at a car dealership in town, and he used to bring the new cars to my boss, who would drive them every couple months. And I got to meet him there, and he always go, "Hey, Bill, can you take me out to practice?" And I'd be like, "Okay, Rudy, I think it's a close practice, but I'll take you out. Just stay with me. Don't say anything." And we got to be great friends. He ended up actually becoming my confirmation sponsor. I got confirmed later in life before I got married, and I couldn't think of a better person to be my confirmation sponsor. It was right there at the Basilica at Notre Dame. Someone who just cared and loved Notre Dame so much. And if you've seen the movie, the story is quite telling. But I think what's more telling is actually the making of the movie. And happy to share that maybe at some point through this. But the tenacity and resiliency that Rudy had that you see in the movie is real. And that was what he needed to make the movie because if you know, there's no other movie about Notre Dame other than what is it, Newt Rockne All-American, right? And that was made about 100 years ago. So he's the most recent Notre Dame, if you will, celebrity, Notre Dame alum that's made a movie. And again, it's a great story, as most people know, but the story behind it is very compelling.
Wow, that is cool. That is so cool. The other interesting thing about you is you served as director of athletics for SUNY Maritime College. You were the senior associate
Mhm.
director of athletics over at Stony Brook University and eventually director of athletics for LIU as well. I'm wondering from your perspective, how do you see the relationship between athletics and Greek life contributing to overall campus culture?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of parallels. You look at athletics just from we let's talk about athletics first. So to me, that's always been a great developmental growth space. It just in my opinion, a little biased because that's the world I've lived in primarily, but it plays a big role of development, leadership, teamwork, commitment to excellence. But it also provides a great sense of campus pride.
Mm.
And I think there's a direct line of and parallels to the Greek life. And when you think about it, you learn so much about being part of a bigger group of organization, a family, if you will. You learn about that. You learn particularly through the leadership roles that I did at the house at the fraternity, the leadership roles that are built into the operation of the house. So you're an 18 to 22-year-old directly impacting the function of your living unit. And not everybody else gets to do that, I think. And also just the camaraderie, building family with others that, as the people I told you about earlier, the musicians, the international students, people from different walks of life, you become friends with them, you become family with them. And it's like athletics, your teammates that you still have friendships with. So to me, a lot of parallels, and I think particularly from the Greek life does parallel athletics, the campus pride piece. And I think that's important for people to understand too, is that those parallels have a lot to do with the success of a university and the pride that people feel on the campus and who they represent and how they all fit in and represent something even bigger than the athletic team or the fraternity or sorority. They represent the university, and particularly when they graduate, that's what they are for the rest of their life. They're a DePauw alum, they're a Phi Delta alum, So I think there's some great connections, and I firmly believe that for a young person who should try and attempt to be in that a Greek organization, male or female, and be able to see the benefits from it, because to me it was outstanding.
Yeah, that is fantastic. I've actually read the research that looked at fraternity and sorority alumni, and you hit the nail on the head. In terms of campus pride, they are some of the most prideful alumni that you will find. And they're not only just prideful about their university, but they're also donating to the university in large, large numbers. And the studies
Mhm.
prove that out. So it would be also interesting, I think, to look at that from an athletic standpoint as well and kind of measure their campus pride and of course donations back to the university and all of those things. I think
Mhm.
we have to get really crystal clear on that because I do think that fraternity and sorority life is and athletics as well. These are some of the best leadership experiences on any college campus. And so, do they have problems? Sure, they do. I think every area of campus we could point to certain problems, right? But
Yeah.
I think it's important that we work to resolve those issues because I do think the leadership skills that you get out of that experience, whether we're talking about Greek life or athletics, I think is second to none. I really believe that.
I have to agree and emphasize that, Mike. I oversaw student affairs at a number of different universities, and from that perspective, I'll say kind of the somewhat central to all those organizations, not athletics or not being in Greek life, but to be able to see it. And also from a fundraising standpoint, you mentioned it, alumni engagement. We always look at what's the number one affinity that an alum has. Is it athletics? Is it Greek life? Is it both? And there's others, of course, but since we're talking about athletics and Greek life, those are like the one, the two or three, probably two out of the top three affinities that
Yeah.
alums have with a university. So I think from an institutional standpoint, investing in both of those areas in terms of engagement and understanding what alums are looking for, those are big.
I would love to see that investment take place, right? I
Mhm.
would absolutely love that. I think it's really important for administrators around the country to really listen to that and look at the data. Look at what the data tells you in terms of engagement and retention of students. Look at that data and then invest accordingly, right? I mean, you tell me what you prioritize based on what you invest in. And so I want you to prioritize athletics. I want you to prioritize fraternity and sorority life. And we can talk about some of the inequities there. I mean, I've seen the amount of support that athletics has. You just look at the roster. There's a lot of
Mhm.
support there, and I'd like to see that also happen within fraternity and sorority life. I think that they deserve that support as well. So
Yeah, yeah, 100%. You used the word retention earlier, and
yeah,
from a student life perspective and admissions, we always looked at what helps retention,
yeah,
and it's engagement on campus and being involved in a campus organization, Greek organization, not only just internally but across campus, because you're working across campus with other, social and cultural engagement with other fraternities and sororities. So there's a lot to be said for Greek life and an impact on retention. And you said it earlier, institutions love retention
right,
because that's tuition revenue, right?
right.
And tuition revenue helps the university, move forward and to use those revenue dollars to reinvest in the institution. So it's a full circle, kind of a meshed experience, I think, in my opinion. And it's important. And I think institutions that are on the rise, they understand that and they're embracing it, I think.
Yeah, we need to embrace it. That's really the key. And you know what? Listen, at a time when higher education feels a lot of pressure from a retention standpoint and a recruitment standpoint, I really believe that whether we're talking about fraternity and sorority life or athletics, those are really the keys to get that engagement and get that retention up. So I believe in it, but we got to invest in it. That's really my main gripe. And the other thing too is I think you're the perfect person to ask this question because I get this question a lot from fraternity and sorority students, which is, that athletic directors sometimes, I'm not saying in all cases, and I'm sure that you're the exception to the rule, but at many times that we do hear of athletic directors that are discouraging their student athletes from joining a fraternity or sorority on campus. So if you're on a campus like that, then how could fraternities and sororities make a compelling case to a director of athletics and the coaches as well to allow their student athletes to also be Greek?
hmm And well, and that's another great question, Mike. And I think, kind of alluding to what I said earlier, the parallels that
Mhm,
that you see that Greek life brings, the parallels to athletics in terms
mhm,
of the experience and the engagement. We talked about retention. And so what I would say, excuse me, is I think those that might be against it or fear it is time management, right? And I think maybe it's too much for the young person to take on. You're living in a Greek organization, being an athletic, all those things. I think that's what they worry about. But if you flip it a little bit and go back to those parallels that we talked about in terms of what the experience lends itself to the young person's development, like we
mhm,
said, leadership,
mhm,
teamwork, community service, a lot of those things that you may experience in athletics, you're also going to experience those in the Greek life opportunity. So to me, I think it's a parallel. It's interconnected. It should be interconnected as much as possible. Obviously, you know individuals have to make their own decisions, but I think it's important that we allow the individual to make the decision. Do you want to be in a Greek organization? Do you want to be an athlete? Do you want to be a musician? Do you want to do other things that take more work outside the classroom? And so to me, the compelling case is that there's parallels to athletics. There's very much about enhancing the student experience, which is going to help retention, which is going to help young people go on and do great things as alumni. And the universities love alumni
mhm.
that support the university in whatever way possible. So to me, it's just again, I'm going to use the term no-brainer, but I think it's a no-brainer in the sense of what it does for a student's experience and what it does for an institution. It's a win-win situation. So
Mhm.
that's my opinion. I'm sure there's others that would say, well, maybe it's too much to take on, but I, I saw it at DePauw. I mean, it was 95% Greek life,
Yeah,
and all those alums went on and did great things. So
right.
it must be doing something right.
They must be doing something right. Look at DePauw. Look at what, I mean, 95% Greeks. I mean, there were a lot of athletes that were doing both, and they were
hmm
able to handle it just fine.
Exactly,
You
exactly.
know?
I mean, part of it's just a way of life, right? It's just part of the way of life you have as a person. So I think it relieves this thought that, it's an extra duty or extra commitment. It's just a way of life. And I think it's a way of life that helps young people develop. And,
Yeah.
it's very, very positive and supportive.
Yeah, I do hope that fraternity and sorority life will borrow some of the things that athletics does really well, which is, when a director of athletics or a coach is looking for, let's just call it, their stud running back on the football team, what does that person do? They end up putting on a suit and they will go and have dinner with that recruit's family to explain why their son should be playing running back for Notre Dame, whatever it is.
hmm
And I think that's something that fraternity and sorority life should and can borrow, which is to say, if you really believe in your organization, go and make that compelling case. Put on a suit and go and have dinner with their family. I tell you what, if you do that and you are successful in explaining all the parallels that we've talked about, between athletics and fraternity and sorority life, as an example, and you can explain why their son should join your fraternity. I tell you what, if somebody made that compelling case on my kitchen table and actually had dinner with me and sat across from the table and we looked at each other eye to eye and had that conversation about how fraternity and sorority life will help them to get a job after graduation, as a parent of two kids who are in college right now, I'll write the check myself and I'll say, here's the check for all the dues done, paid in advance 4 years.
And you know what, Mike, I did forget to mention, like the summer before I went into DePaul, they had a summer get together, Phi Delta
Mhm,
did in our area and around the South Bend area. And that was just another opportunity to get to know guys in the house. And so I think that was also very helpful because going to before getting to campus, I had a chance to meet some of the house members and and so I think that was important too. So that kind of connects with what you're saying about the recruitment effort,
mhm. Yeah.
and helping understand the benefits. And so that was part of it. So I
Yeah.
apologize for not mentioning that earlier, but that was another significant experience that helped me decide.
That's really significant. Don't wait until, rush starts 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after classes start. You should be working on recruitment right now over winter break, over summer breaks. I mean, there is no time like the present. And over those breaks, what are these kids doing? Nothing. They're just hanging out. So you might as well hang out with non-affiliated students and bring them into your fraternity or sorority.
Mhm.
Because if you do that over break, guess where is the first place they're going to go? As soon as that freshman lands at their dorm, where are they going? They're going to the fraternity house because they've been hanging out with you all summer and they want to go
Mhm.
and meet your friends. It's very simple. I mean, it's not rocket science here that we're
No,
talking
yeah,
about.
not at all. Not at all. It's all about people.
It's all about people. People join people. That's the expression in our industry, and it is so true. It's all about relationships. Bill didn't join Phi Delta Theta because of the big party or the big event that they were throwing. He joined because of the relationships that he had built with those Phi Delta brothers over the summer. That's
Mhm.
it. That was it. And he wanted to go and extend that and meet everybody else. So keep that in mind. I think that's really important. Now, you have a presentation that you give on college campuses. It's
Mhm.
called Prepare to be a Champion, Dream, Plan, Action, Achieve. I really like this. And in there, you talk about intentional life and career goal identification. The issue is that today many students struggle with figuring out what is their life purpose. They're always looking over the fence to decide is the grass greener on the other side of the fence, and maybe I
Mhm.
belong over there instead of over here. So how can today's college students identify their life and career goals?
Mhm. And that's very important too. I think going back to our last note, there was one of the things I have a firm belief in is that life is a people business. In other words, whatever we do is about people. We can never have success or failure without others, and we start there. It's important to understand that because that's going to be an important aspect of all of our success. And if we recognize that early on, I think it's important because that's talking about mentors and networks and so on. But I think it's interesting. I'm not sure. I didn't do it intentionally or didn't realize it at the time, but I was really kind of creating this philosophy while I was at DePauw. And the reason why is I wasn't doing very well academically, grade wise. I was going to class, but I had two jobs to pay for school, was playing football, wanted to do it all at the same time. And so kind of let the grades go a little bit, B minus average, but I wasn't going to kick any doors open with that GPA. But what I did realize, what I had said earlier about the experiential learning piece. And I think that's important for young people to help decide where they want to go and what they want to do. Experience tells us a lot. Once you do it, you have a sense of do you like this? Do you not like this? Do you like the work? Do you like the hours? Do you like the stress? And do you like the wins? The things that, oh, this is great, whatever that field is, there's a win. There's a point that of satisfaction. And so I think that's important is getting experience and really early on, even before college if you can do it, but while you're in college, you should be doing as many work opportunities as you can. The reason why is, and this is where the philosophy started, probably somewhere way back in the back of my head was being created, but I did an accounting internship the winter term of my freshman year at DePauw. And it was allowed me to stay home, and so I didn't spend any money and whatever. But it was a great experience because I learned a lot about accounting because I was not sure what I was going to do. To be honest, Mike, I had three different majors my first three semesters. I figured it out eventually, and that came through experience, right?
Yeah.
But the accounting internship was fantastic in that I learned something about accounting. But more importantly, what did I learn? I learned that I was not going to be an accountant, right? So no offense to accountants out there, but it's a different world, right? And so that was very helpful to me. So I didn't go down that track for 4 years and then find out I didn't like it and then have to turn around and figure it out. Now, on the other hand, I had another great experience later on, and it was great in both ways. It was experience, and it was a eye opener. It was the epiphany. It was the moment. And I did an internship at the Spectrum Arena in Philadelphia. It's no longer there, but during my junior year in the Philadelphia Urban semester, which was one of those opportunities that DePauw participated in. And what was great about that was that I was put in a position of group tickets and marketing. And not only was it that and working at the arena and watching the Sixers and the Flyers play, but the realization that I can be somewhere in athletics as a profession. And it was like, holy cow, this is great. I didn't realize this until I experienced it, that being in that environment. So I had I had other experiences I could tell you about, but the two significant ones were the one to realize I didn't want to do this, and the other one that I did want to do. And the other experiences just augmented the resume, if you will.
Mhm.
Could tell people who you are and what you're about. And I think that's important too. People see your experience on your resume, that you have an opportunity to tell your prospective employers, who you are and what you're about. And I think that helps. So experience is key. And if you can take advantage of it, good, bad, or indifferent, and always make it a learning opportunity, you're never going to go wrong. And then as you proceed towards that specific goal that you've identified, then we got to talk about what's your plan, what's your action, what are the things that are going to help you get to that ultimate goal of whatever position that you want. And of course, once you hit that goal, you got to create another goal, right? Because life's not about it's not a destination, right? It's a long journey, and we set goals along the way that always kind of get us to reach out a little bit further, every day, every week, every month, right? So if you could tie that together, and do it sooner than later, I think it's awesome. I was fortunate; it kind of happened subconsciously and in real time, and it made a difference for me. And that's why I want to share with others, whether it's young people, or people halfway through their career. Part of it is just taking the moment to recognize, hey, what's my dream? And how am I going to plan to get there? And what am I going to do to get there? And pretty straightforward, Mike, but some people need it. And
Yeah.
I love to share that with those that need it and make a difference.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Bill is sharing some really important life lessons here in terms of getting that internship as early as possible while in college to really figure out what your next steps are. I wish that I had done what Bill did, which was to get an accounting internship. I was an accounting major, and I tell you what, that major is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. It will put you through your paces. And it destroyed my GPA. Well, I made up for it later in grad school and with the doctorate. I made up for it. But the truth is that, I got out in the real world with that accounting degree, and I found out, I was like, man, debits and credits, this is as boring as can be for 8 hours a day, and I can't do it anymore. And so now, I'm a public speaker. So go figure. But it was a really good, I think, foundation for being an entrepreneur, because now I don't need to hire an external accountant to tell me how my business is doing. I understand how to build income statement and balance sheet. So I know at all times in real time how my business is performing. And that makes me a better entrepreneur, as opposed to having to have an outside accountant do my taxes and tell me if I'm doing well or not doing well. So it was a good experience, but ultimately I realized I can't do this professionally.
Right, right. Well, the one thing is, Mike, as we both know, is accounting is everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So to have an understanding of it is important because it's going to help you with whatever position you're in, budgeting, strategic planning. So there's a good thing there, right? So we
Yeah.
both embrace that and we use it to how we need. And but at the same time, I think being able to really, as you do those experiences, figure out what you're passionate about.
Right.
And that's what experience does. It tells us good, bad, or indifferent, and it helps us find that path. And you find the path where you're most passionate about, what you feel great about every day. As you do that, then you're on the right track. And
Yeah.
then it's up to you to make things happen and work hard at it.
hmm a lot of the students who are listening right now, they're leaders in their fraternities, their sororities, maybe even athletics, but they're leading for the first time in their lives. And I'm wondering how the students can identify what their leadership style is.
Yeah, I think that's something where, particularly at the younger ages, we get thrust into these positions in a way that
Mhm.
for whatever reason, somebody says you're the captain of the football team, which I
Yep.
was. And just so you know, we were only 2-8 when I was the captain. So I don't know what that tells you. But when somebody says when you're given that position of leadership or you evolve into that position of leadership, whatever it is, leadership's not a title. It's a presence, right? And so I think as I learned more about leadership through my doctoral studies and some of the research that I've done since, is the clear picture for everybody to really embrace is that there's not a one size fits all leadership. Okay. And that's just the reality of it. Nobody can, and for the same time, even if there's six categories of leadership that somebody writes about, there's probably really more than that. And that plays into the individual piece because I think it starts with knowing who you are as a person, what's important to you, what matters, and allowing you to be genuine in that. Because I know that through my own experiences and seeing others, is that your followers, your organization, they see that pretty quickly, whether you're authentic or not, whether you're trying to play a role or whether you're really the person that they hope to follow. And so that's the first thing. Try to understand who you are as a person, what's important to you, and making sure that you understand that piece. And then also understand that leadership takes work, right? So just as I said before, just because somebody names you the leader doesn't mean you don't have to work at it, right? Because it's actually one of the greatest responsibilities a person can have in life
Mm.
is to lead others, to be responsible for others. And so it takes work and it doesn't just happen, without intentional effort. I think Vince Lombardi once said that, leaders aren't born, they're made, and I think that's significant. I think also one of the recommendations I would make just for my research would I'd do some reading on Daniel Goleman's work on emotional intelligence. And he has four dimensions of leadership. And I'm not going to throw a lecture at you, but what's important is that the fundamentals are about self-awareness, what I had mentioned earlier, how you self-manage, because we all have our strengths and weaknesses. If we know that, we can manage ourselves better,
Mm.
which makes us a better leader. Also, social awareness. Where do you fit in? Are you the House president? Are you the House VP? Are you the what was the manager, the facility manager, or like
Sure.
myself, I mopped floors before I became the social chairman. Never was president, but I had some key roles, mopping floors and social. Uh, but knowing the social awareness, so like where you fit in, and then from there, it's relationship management, as we talked about earlier about relationships. And so to me, that was always fundamental. It's pretty straightforward for somebody to read and embrace. And there's other things that Goldman talks about, but I think it helps people kind of hone in on where you are. And it doesn't need to be a titled, categorized, I'm this kind of leader, but you'll find that you're, which do you lean towards? And I would recommend that being a dictator is not one of the better ones because in today's world, the old school was, my way or the highway, and that doesn't work anymore. People want to be a part of it, they want to be involved, and they want to feel like they're being motivated and inspired.
Yeah.
And every situation's different, but if you're true to yourself and your understanding of what the organization's doing and what you're passionate about, the people that you lead, they'll follow you because they know that you're for real. They know that you have the passion. They know that you're a positive impact. They know that you care about them. And I always say this, an individual success is all about the team success.
Yeah.
And I get away from using the word I think it's we and us because that's what resonates with your team, with your group of people that you're working with. So I think those are some things that are important to kind of really think about and resonate. And I've been fortunate. I've been in higher education my whole career, and it's because of identifying with the passion and what drives me, right? Student success, whether it's coaching, student affairs, raising money for students, it doesn't matter. It's student success. And so I've been fortunate to identify that. And I think that's helped me personally. And I think it would help others too in terms of the leadership roles that they would have. Because it's not a title. I emphasize it. Forget about the title. Think about what you do and how you help others be successful. Then you'll be a great leader. If you can share and communicate that with everybody, they'll follow, they'll support you as you support them. Great things will happen wherever you are. And I think success is relative. No matter where you are, you can have a chance to be successful, and you got to do it with others around you. One's too small of a number to do great things. It takes people. It takes us. It takes we, and good leadership will get there. Will get you there.
There's some great gems in that answer right there. Go and rewind and listen to that again because there are gems in there. And you're absolutely right. It's not about a title at all. So, for those who are listening who don't have a title, yeah, I served as chapter president, but the reality is that anybody can be a leader. And so that's really important. And we all know people on exec board in our fraternity that are bad leaders. And we also all know people who have no title at all in the chapter, but we think that they're some of the best leaders in the chapter. So it's not about title, it's about what you do and where you bring the organization. And I love that focus on we. It really is all about the team. It's not about you. It's about what we collectively can do, which is much more as a team than we can do individually. And that's the beauty of athletics. That is the beauty of fraternity, is that collectively we can really amplify our impact by working together. Really
100%.
great stuff in there. I mean, just
100%.
beautiful, beautiful stuff. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is the importance of learning from failure. Many of us today's students, they're just afraid of failing today. So
Mhm.
why do you think failure is actually important in their journey?
Well, I'm a firm believer that first of all, person needs to get into the game of life, right? You got to try things, you got to get involved, and when you do that, you risk failure. But let it as we've talked about, let experience be your friend. Let it help you guide to where you want to be. And I always say that you can't hit a home run from the dugout, right? You just can't.
Sure.
It's impossible. You got to get up to the plate, and you got to get there, and you got to play. You got to be ready to take a fastball, curveball, whatever it is. But you got to get up there with the idea that yes, failure is a possibility, but you'll never know success without taking that risk, without getting in the game, without stepping into the up to the plate. And so I think first and foremost, people should really understand that there's nothing wrong with failure. Failure is one of the greatest learning tools that you can have. It's part of life. I mean, you know, everybody's failed and will fail through the course of their life, and that's not a pessimistic view. It's a realistic one. I'm probably one of the most positive people you ever meet, and I realize that failure is part of it. I've had some of my own, and to be honest, some of them led me in the right path. What I didn't say earlier, I thought I was going to go to grad school for sports administration, and somebody offered me a GA football coaching job. And I took that job. And if I had gotten into the other school, things might be different. But that failure helped me really get closer, and I embrace that. And so, but the one thing that people have to understand too is failure is not good when you don't learn from it,
Right.
right? So that's the antithesis, right? Learn from failure, but if you don't learn, then it's not good for you. And so I always look back. I was a three-sport athlete in high school. I played football, baseball, and in winter I did gymnastics just as a kind of a one-off. I wasn't really never did it until I got into high school. But my gymnastics coach had a sign hanging from the ceiling, right? So it's a big gym, ceiling's probably 30 feet off the ground, but the sign's hanging there. And the sign said, make a different mistake this time. And what it said was, it didn't say making a mistake is bad, just make a different one. In other words, take the risk again, just do something different, and learn from the mistake that you just had, because that's where it's at. That's where you get stronger. That's where you get better. That's where you become, I think, you become more wise in terms of the situation that you were in. And if you learn from it, then great. But I think also what people don't realize, which to me is like one of the key things to failure, is that we can specifically through failure, we can learn resiliency. And I always use the athletic reference in that, teams play, they practice, they play, they lose. And the next day they don't quit. They go back to practice and they do it again. That's resiliency. Employers love resiliency.
Mhm.
That's why they love student athletes. That's why they love people who are in Greek life and organizations or whatever on campus that they're involved in. That's what employers love because they know they're part of an organization. They know that they have goals, and they know that part of it is that throughout course of time that failure happens, and it's really, you know what, it's as we know it's inevitable, right? It's how we react, and that's resiliency, right? So I think it's important not only to try things and do things that you might be a little hesitant to do, knowing that it's not the end of the world. Failure is not the end of the world. We're going to learn from it. And if anything, you're going to learn that quality of resiliency, which to me is one of the major factors, I think, in our development. It's easy when things go well.
Mhm.
That takes no effort. There's no stress. There's no strain. There's no really no learning. You learn more from, your failures than you do success. When you're successful, you just keep going forward and you don't think about it. You just check boxes. And failure, you step back sometimes and you reevaluate. You see if you do it right. You look at the things that you could have done differently, maybe. And sometimes failure, there's no explanation, but at least you're taking a moment to be intentional about understanding why it happened and trying to prevent it from happening again. And I think one thing that's important to that too is mental attitude. So mental attitude is key. It's number one to me. Is you have a choice. We've been given a great power to decide, and every morning we decide whether we're positive, negative, hurt, heal, criticize or compliment. And if we understand it starts there. So if you have an attitude that says, okay, I understand that failure is going to happen, I'm going to learn from it intentionally, and I'm going to use that as making me stronger and getting me closer to whatever goal I'm reaching for. And the thing that always resonates in my mind is my college coach, Nick, I mentioned earlier, most positive guy in the world. Between him and another person, most positive. But he always used to say that mental is to physical as 4 is to 1. And what does that mean? It means the power of our attitude, our mental strength and attitude is 4 times our physical effort. And so it starts here, right? So if we have the idea that we can be successful with failure as part of that, then we should be excited about the next opportunity. Go in full board, making sure you prepare, right? Don't just, don't jump out of an airplane without a parachute, right?
Mhm.
But be prepared. And if you don't make it, okay, move on. Life has a lot of experiences it provides for us. They're
Yeah.
endless.
Mhm.
And so to me, I think it's there. You gotta really embrace it. You really have to have the right positive attitude about it. And you don't want to make it a habit, but you want to understand it's going to happen. You learn from it. If you do that, you can do great things.
Mm. Amen. Yeah, I love the conversation on resiliency. There's no question that I've failed. You and I have both failed at things in life, but I've learned the most from those incidents. And so that is just a part of life. And going back to the baseball reference, understand if you're a career 330 hitter, okay, you are going to the Hall of
Hall of
Fame.
Fame,
All right?
baby.
You are
You're
Hall
in.
of Fame candidates.
You're
So
in. Yeah.
understand that they just get back up. Do you have bad days where over, you're an 0 for 4 day? Yeah, sometimes those days are going to happen, but you got
Yep.
to get up and go to the field the next day and say, you know what, my next big hit is right around the corner, and always have that belief that
Mhm.
it's coming. And it will if you bear itself over time. But if you don't get up and go back to the field the next day, you're never going to realize that, right?
Right. And I think one other thing, a positive mental attitude, but having a mentor too.
Yeah.
And we could talk about that, I think, as we go on, but that
Yeah.
is going to be key too. Somebody who can help you, you know, talk to, work through it, get us another set of ears and eyes on it. And so I think that's important.
I agree with you 100%. If you're going to do something challenging, go and find somebody that's been there and who's done that. That is going to save you so much time and aggravation and heartbreak. You have no idea. But then it begs the question, how can today's college students expand their network and actually find these mentors while they're a college student in college?
Well, again, I look back, I had mentors that I didn't even realize they were mentors until the word came out. They're like, oh, this is a mentor. So I grew up in South Bend before my job at Notre Dame. The alumni director at Notre Dame, Chuck Lennon, who has since passed, God rest his soul. But he was the most positive guy. Again, most positive guy I ever met in my life. Never heard him cuss. I think he was going to go to school to be a priest after Notre Dame. Just that kind of human being. And so he'd always been, I guess, de facto kind of a mentor. I watched him. And then he became a real mentor when I got into alumni relations professionally. And I was like, this is an area that he knows something about. So I'm going to lean on Chuck for some insights and so on. But early on, I think that people should identify, if they can just stop for a minute and think about the people that impact them the most. Those are your mentors, really, right? The people who impacted you the most, they're people that can be your mentors. And as long as they're a little bit afar of the situation so that they're not biased, they can give you that kind of mentorship that you need. Um, but I think to your point, the networking piece, I mean, I tell you right now, our listeners right now, they're way better networkers than I am. But with the social media and so on, I think that's key. The LinkedIn's and things to connect you are just phenomenal in today's world. In my day, we were still sending letters and using payphones. So networking was a little bit harder. But what I will tell you is that one thing I did do that again, I don't know where I came up with it, but while I was at the Spectrum Arena, you know what I did? I asked every top executive for 5 minutes of their time just to have just interaction. Tell me about your job. I just want to learn more while I'm here. Well, of course, Mike, the 5 minutes turned into an hour, right?
Right.
You nudge that ego a little bit, and now you're getting some tremendous interaction if you do it right. Tremendous interaction, tremendous feedback. That was the experience that led me to think or led me to prepare. And I did apply to grad schools because of that. All those interviews that I had, I call them informational interviews. So, let's note that informational interviews where you visit with top executives, people that you think you want to be in those roles. It's kind of like experience without having to do it, right? You're getting firsthand understanding of experience by visiting with these people to understand what they do and what do they like, what do you don't like. And those were great for me because not only did it point me in the direction of grad school, but that was also part of my network because those people knew that who Bill the intern was. They knew who I was because I got to share my story a little bit. And now I've started a network that if I stayed with it and kept it warm or live, it was always going to be helpful. And to be honest, Rich Oriolo, one of the guys I worked for, you already said the years, but 30 years ago, excuse me, I ended up reconnecting with him down the road on official business for LIU and what he was doing at the time. So you never know the people that you meet. If you stay in touch with them, you never know when they can be helpful to you and you can be helpful to them. The football coach at LIU, Ron Cooper, who's there, he offered me that first coaching job, 1987 or 1986. When we had a coaching job open 3 years ago, he's the first person I called and hired him. And so you never know. He helped me, I helped him. So I think things can come full circle. And maybe it's network web is maybe a better way to describe it. But if you do it right, talk to people that are doing the job you want, make connections with them, see the people that are closest to you, like family, friends, neighbors that you really respect and feel like they have something to do to help you get better. Identify those people, and then it takes work. You got to keep it going. That you got to keep the network live. You got to stay engaged, and I think what happens is as you learn from others, you actually start developing that mentoring that you're going to turn around and give back to the next person. And that's what always makes me feel good when I see people that I've brought into my, if you will, circle and see them go on and do great things like get their doctorate, become a dean of students, go on and be a head coach, whatever it is. That's really where it's at. And again, I'm going to reemphasize, it's a people business. What we do is about people and mentors and networking. It's about people. And I will, add one more thing I think is, one of the things I also learned somewhere along the line was this acronym WIFM, and it stands for What's in It for Me. And I want to emphasize the me is not me. The me is you,
Right.
or my colleague, or my donor, or my athlete that I'm coaching, or whoever it is. I need to understand what's in it for them, what's their me, what's in it for me, right? If I can understand that, I can be very good to great in helping them be successful, which is leadership. So if I embrace that, the what's in it for me, for the other person, if I can understand that, I can help them and in turn be successful and feel successful because I've helped another person. So I think that's one thing I always I try to think about, before I start talking or before I ask, I want to think about where are they coming from. They're asking themselves, what's in it for me by talking to Bill? What's in it for me to follow Bill? What's in it for me to have lunch with Bill, the fundraiser, right? Because they know that I'm going to ask them for money, right?
Sure.
So it's important to embrace that. I think that's very helpful too. That little bit of advice of understanding other people first can make a big difference in leadership and relationships and networking and mentoring. It's to me, it's significant.
Yeah, it's a little bit counterintuitive for the college students because they always think that they have to prove themselves and talk about themselves and what they've done. But the reality is, it's really all about the other person. I understand it's difficult to understand that, but it really, really is. If you can think about if you're meeting with a business owner, what is that business owner's challenge? And ultimately, when you understand what they're faced with and what they're really struggling with, then a conversation happens about how you, as the college student, can help them. So maybe the challenge for that business owner is getting more awareness about their product or service. And you, as a college student, that opens the door to talk about your social media expertise, that you understand TikTok and Instagram, and you can help that business owner get to the next level, right? But it's always about them. And then you can show how your talents can help them achieve their goals. And I know that's counterintuitive, but that's really where it's all at. And also the piece on the networking is brilliant. You know, we have this tool called LinkedIn where you can reach out and have these informational interviews that Bill is talking about with anybody in the world, literally anybody in the world. So you just find those people that maybe are from an alumnus from your university, maybe they're in your fraternity or sorority, maybe they're an alumnus of Phi Delta. I guarantee you, if you reach out to them on LinkedIn and you ask them for 5 minutes informational interview to understand what it is that they do every single day, they might not get back to you that day because they're busy people, but I guarantee you within a couple of weeks, they will set up a Zoom with you and they will meet you and they will tell you everything you need to know about what they do every single day. And if that is your goal, that time with them is worth its weight in gold. And they're all going to say yes to you as a college student. You know why? Because they know you have nothing to sell them. You are just a college student
That's
and
right.
you're not trying to sell them anything. You just want to know how they got to where they are. That's it. And they love to talk about themselves. So it actually satisfies everybody's needs.
That's right. That's that nudging the ego, as I
The
say.
ego. Oh yeah,
5 minutes
absolutely.
will turn into a half hour without a problem.
Yeah, the alumni love to talk about themselves. So use that to
Mm.
understand how they got to where they are. And I'm telling you, that time will be worth its weight in gold. But you got to take advantage of that. You got to ask, and they will help you. I promise you. There are a lot of people like Bill and I that would love to mentor college students in order to get to where they want to go. So fantastic. This has been so much fun. My weakness is really good food. And as somebody who lived in East Meadow, New York, for many, many people, I understand the cuisine on Long Island. Mostly it's pizza and bagels for me because I just can't get them where I am in Nashville, Tennessee. So where should I go for a great meal the next time I am on the island?
Well, Mike, I should be asking you if you're from East Meadow because that's you're right in the heart of it, man. But
Yeah.
I agree with you on the pizzas and the bagels, right? You know,
Oh,
I'm from the Midwest, and my in-laws moved out there to retire right there in South Bend at Notre Dame. They're Notre Dame alums, and they always talk about the pizza and the bagels is never the same. So
yeah.
I think that, really the tough question is, which place do you want to go, right? Because there's so many opportunities. I think for here, us, the Martinovs here in Northport, New York, we go to Gino's for the pizza because
Nice.
it's 100%. It's always great. They, writing, it's fresh. It's just right, and I get it. From the Midwest, I understand the different pizzas, right? You even have the Chicago styles and the Detroits and all that, but the pizza out here is truly exceptional. And then for the bagels, we go to Country Bagel in
Nice.
Northport.
Nice.
Family ownerships for the past 35 years. The family. They're working, and I think that says a lot about what they do. In terms of how committed they are to what the product that they produce. And so, anytime you can go to those kind of places that have been there for a while, that tells you something about the commitment they have to just making great food, whatever it is. And so when you come out, I think you need to take me out to dinner because you're that East Meadow. That's where my brother-in-law lives, and every
Right.
time we go there, we always getting food either on the way or on the way back. So
Oh yeah, I'm right in the thick of it, and there are some spots within about 5 or 10 minutes of East Meadow that would just blow your mind in terms of great food. So we'll definitely make that happen in East Meadow because yeah, there's some good food there. So really, really enjoyed this. This has been so much fun. If our listeners, if they want to book you to speak
mhm.
on their college campus, where should they go to connect with you?
Well, Mike, it's real simple, right? You mentioned LinkedIn, so I'm on LinkedIn. You go,
Mhm.
you find William Martinoff on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only one, so that's a good thing. So just remember Martinov is the last name. And then of course they can email me anytime, and that's real simple too. That's just William.Martinov, which is Martinov @gmail.com. And one of those two, you should be able to find me. If not, if you know Mike, talk to Mike. We'll get connected. But yeah, I think the experiences that you and I have had, if we can share those with young people who are on a course for great things, we all have our own journey of success. We all have our different paths, but our success is a result of a lot of other people that have been helpful to us. And so I just want to be a part of that. I always, that's why I'm in higher education, right? Just you want to help see somebody be successful, reach their potential, and go on and do great things. And if you do that, then I think you've never worked a day in your life. You've
Yeah.
done what I call a lifestyle. You've chosen a lifestyle to help people, and if you do that, then you've never worked. You've just enjoyed doing what you do.
Yeah, 100%. I'm defending my dissertation on January 22nd, less than a month ago. I start out the acknowledgments with, I stand on the shoulder of giants. And I really feel that way. I don't think I would be in this position if not for others who have helped me. So I think this podcast and this interview is a perfect example of, two people coming together to just try and make it easier for the next generation because we're so grateful for the people that helped us to get to this point.
Yeah.
And now it's all about helping the next generation to meet their goals. That's really, honestly, truly what it's all about.
100%, man. 100%. It's a very fulfilling experience. It
Yeah.
can be, and it's like no other.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, when I see people go out and take, the things that we give them and then go out and do amazing things, I don't think there is a better reward. There's just no better reward. It's not about the money. It's not about the anything. It's just about watching other people be successful. That is truly where it's at. So anyway, but this has been a great interview. Thank you so much,
You bet.
Dr. Martinov, for the time. I think I'm grateful for it. I know our listeners are grateful for it. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Mike, and have a happy holidays and a
Thank
happy
you.
new year.
Thank you. And to all of our listeners, happy holidays, happy new year to you. And if you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Martinoff, I want you to like it and I want you to share it with other students on your college campus. Thank you so much for being here today. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Bye for now.